So what makes more power? The carburetor, the ancient fuel leak, or these high-tech, highfalutin port injection EFI systems? Well, it's really no contest. The carburetor every time. But here's why. So how can these ancient, outdated pieces of machinery make more power than a modern port injection EFI system? Well, it's really quite simple. The fuel gets atomized up here, and it travels all the way down through the intake runner into the cylinder. All that time is chilling the incoming air, making denser charge, more fuel, more air, more power. The term is called charge cooling, and that's why, far and away, carburetors make more power than port injection EFI. Port injection meaning directly at the port. The nozzles are right here spraying at the back of the intake valve. There's no time for that fuel to cool anything at all, so there you go. But I hear you being a little skeptical. Here's a few examples to prove my claim. Now, as you can see here, this is an Engine Masters test, and they literally use the exact same intake manifold for both tests. All they did was swap out the carburetor for a valve body on the top. Uh, they left all the injection actually in the intake during the carburetor run too. As you can see, I mean, it's no contest, really. I mean, all of that meat is simply because the gas is chilling the air as it's going into the intake. Okay, sure. Complete fluke, right? It can't happen again. Okay, here you go. This one was from Richard Holdner. Now, he also did a carburetor and EFI shootout. This was his results. I want you to take a look at everything below peak horsepower, because I'll get to that in a minute. I mean, look at it. It's basically railroad tracks the whole way up, except for a little more meat right down at the bottom. Now, you're going to look at the peak horsepower and go, aha! See? He's got you there, right? Not quite. Let's take a look at the fuel curves of this test. Now here you can see the carburetor starts out super lean and it comes right down until it's super rich. That point in which it went super rich, well, that's the point where EFI took over and won the total horsepower number. But here's the problem with that. Now I made a short video on this, but I'll do it here too. Carburetors on dynos really are unfair. You know why? Because how many times have you heard this claim? Well, we can't really adjust it anymore because it was lean up here, and if we lean anything out, it's going to jeopardize that. You notice it's always down at the very bottom of the curve that occurs, right? Right as it goes into the dyno. Well, here's the problem. Carburetors have pump shots for that reason. They're supposed to supply fuel right off the hit. But you don't get that with a dyno because they go full throttle. They wait until the RPM gets up. They put on the brake on the dyno. They bring it down. The pump shot's gone by the time they start the actual dyno pull. So the pump shot's not even included. That's why it's always so lean right at the beginning, and that's why they claim they can't do anything. They can if it was in the real world, because in the real world, that lean spot would have been curbed by those. Okay, so I can hear, this is kind of unfair, right? I mean, you're testing port injection versus this. It's got the charge cooling. I mean, what's going on here? Okay, all right. Nick's Garage did a throttle body EFI injection versus carburetor, and here's his test results. Now this looks like a jumbled up mess, but just know the black line is the carburetor. The blue and the red line are both the peak torque, and the peak horsepower of the EFI. Couldn't manage to do it in the same graph, so they had to do two different runs with it. Self-learning and all that, right? Well, I'm just going to let you take a minute to look at this dyno graph because to me, it seems like that black line is on top a lot more than it's on the bottom. So there, I threw you a bone. There are EFIs that can come close to matching the carburetor's ultimate potential, and that's only because they try to act like one. I'll catch you next time.